The following is the podcast discussing a short story that I put together this morning after having a vivid dream. The story is read in full after the podcast for those interested.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different, something really special, actually. We're going to be diving into a story, but not just any story. This one came from, well, you, our listener.
That's right. And
Yeah.
it's not just a story you wrote down. This one started as a dream, which I got to say is pretty fascinating.
It is. It really is. And then, you took that dream and turned it into a full short story called The Grove Beyond the River. And, well, knowing that you're a devout Catholic, we just knew we had to explore it through that lens, with your faith in mind.
Yeah, and to help us out, you were kind enough to send along not just the story itself, but some really thoughtful analysis from both like a literary perspective and a Catholic one.
So buckle up, everyone, because we are about to unpack this dream-turned story and see what treasures it holds.
I mean, right off the bat, the fact that this story originated in a dream is just, it's so intriguing. It's like we're tapping into this wellspring of deep spiritual reflection that's happening on a subconscious level.
Definitely. And the fact that it then, became a short story, it speaks to how powerful those themes must have been for you.
For sure. For those just joining us who haven't had a chance to read it yet, could you give us a quick rundown of what The Grove Beyond the River is about?
Absolutely. So the story focuses on these four individuals. At first, they seem like complete strangers, and they find themselves in this mysterious kind of in-between place. We don't know where it is, who they are, what's going on. It's very liminal, I guess you could say.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. Go on.
As the story unfolds, we slowly realize that this place, this grove, is a very specific moment. It's actually a 2-minute window that comes after death, but before final judgment.
Wow.
And get this, it's presented as a last chance granted by God through Mary's intercession for souls who maybe died in a state of despair or serious sin, but, hadn't completely rejected God's grace.
So it's like a final opportunity to turn back, to choose something different.
Exactly. And this grove becomes a kind of testing ground where their internal states, their very souls, are reflected in the external obstacles and choices they face.
Now, this is where things get really interesting when we start looking at it from a Catholic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
This concept of a final, merciful intervention, it lines up beautifully with what the Church teaches about God's infinite love and desire for everyone to be saved.
Absolutely. It's not that God's judgment is changing, right? It's about offering that last possible moment for a soul to turn towards him, to choose him.
Right. It's like until the very last second, that door is still open, even if it's just a crack.
Exactly. Now, one of the things that really struck me about The Grove Beyond the River was the atmosphere. It's unlike anything I've ever read before.
How so?
It's got this blend of spiritual allegory, which, you expect given the theme, but it also has this surreal, almost psychological thriller vibe. Like, there were parts that reminded me of M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Oh, interesting.
And then, it's got this moral clarity that made me think of Flannery O'Connor. And at the same time, it feels timeless, almost like a myth or a parable.
You're right. It's this unique blend of like purgatory, but not quite purgatory as we traditionally understand it. And then there's this family tragedy element and even a touch of supernatural suspense, all within this overarching story of redemption.
Exactly. That idea of purgatory, but not quite. That's really key, isn't it? I mean, the story definitely explores the state of the soul after death and this idea of purification, but framing it as this 2-minute window, it's so creative. And it actually doesn't contradict traditional Catholic teaching. It's like a different way of exploring the same profound mysteries.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so effective. By blending genres like this, it makes these really complex theological concepts more approachable, even for those who might not be super familiar with Catholic thought.
Totally. And the little bits of darkness, the suspenseful parts, they really highlight the weightiness of the choices these characters are facing. There's a real sense of urgency.
For sure. So where should we start? I mean, there's so much to unpack here.
Yeah, there is. Well, there are a few key symbols and elements that I think we should definitely dive into. The grove itself, the mansion, this character Frenchie and his barge, and then, of course, Mary and the mystical city of God. We also need to talk about the themes of memory, identity, family, and how all of this connects to Catholic theology. Lots to cover.
A lot to cover, yeah.
So let's begin with the Grove. What is it? What does it symbolize in your story?
Well, from the literary analysis you shared, it seems like the grove is a kind of sacred threshold.
Okay, I like that.
It's described in the story as a thin space, which is this idea that some places are just closer to the spiritual realm, where the veil between our world and the next is thinner, places where divine grace seems more readily available.
Like those moments where you just feel a deeper sense of peace or a connection to something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. And in your story, the grove is the entry point into this liminal state, this in-between place. It's where the heavy grip of despair can start to loosen, and hope, even if it's just a tiny seed, can begin to take root.
It's fascinating how you describe it as Edenic but incomplete. There's that sense of heavenly peace, but it's clearly not heaven itself.
Right. It's more like the potential for paradise. Like, it's being offered, but it's not a guarantee. It has to be chosen, embraced. The souls there have to actively work towards it.
It reminds me of those, choose your own adventure books, but with eternal stakes.
Exactly. There are real consequences to the choices they make in this in-between time.
Speaking of choices, let's talk about the mansion. It's the opposite of the Grove, isn't it? It's this temptation of false peace, this really alluring but ultimately deadly pull of despair.
Yeah, it's like hell disguised as comfort. But instead of the fire and brimstone, the torture that we usually associate with hell, the mansion offers forgetfulness, oblivion.
Like a numbing of the soul.
Precisely. It's rest without joy, peace without the presence of God, without love.
It's a chilling thought, actually, to think that the real horror of hell might not be physical pain, but the absence of everything meaningful.
Right. And that's what makes the choice so stark, to choose comfortable nothingness over the possibility, however difficult, of divine love.
Then there's Frenchie and his barge. He's such an interesting character. He seems to embody this relentless pursuit of despair, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Frenchie he's like this ever-present tempter, luring the souls towards the mansion, towards oblivion. And the barge is like this vehicle of despair, this constant reminder that giving up is always an option.
It's interesting, though, because the barge is always there, no matter how far the characters try to move away from it. But it's not like Frenchie is, magically teleporting them back. It's more like their own internal struggles are drawing them back to it.
That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
It speaks to the internal nature of temptation, Despair, like any temptation, can feel so inescapable, so overwhelming.
And the beasts on the barge, they're terrifying, aren't they? Especially that bear. You describe it in the story with these two human eyes, which is just so unsettling.
Yeah, those beasts, they're like the enforcers of fear. They don't physically hurt anyone, but they herd the souls, they intimidate them, and they subtly push them away from love and towards that submission to despair that Frenchie represents.
And the bear with those eyes, it just embodies that insidiousness of fear, right? How it paralyzes us, how it controls us, how it keeps us from taking those risks, those leaps of faith that are so essential for real growth, for real love.
Exactly. Keeps us small, keeps us stuck.
Now, let's talk about Mary and the mystical city of Mead. This feels so central to the story's Catholic heart.
Absolutely. It's like the city represents both the ultimate goal, the destination, and this transformative process. It's not just heaven as some abstract concept, but this real, tangible place where love is perfected. This vision of purgatory as a pilgrimage.
Yeah, the analysis you provided really emphasized that it's not just about getting to heaven, it's about the journey, the purification, the growth in love that has to happen along the way.
Right. And purgatory, a lot of people misunderstand it. They think it's all about punishment, but really it's about cleansing. It's about preparing the soul for the fullness of God's love.
Yeah.
It's like a spiritual spa for the soul, where all the gunk and grime of sin is washed away.
I love that. A spiritual spa for the soul. It's so much more hopeful than the fire and brimstone imagery.
It is. And it's important to remember that purgatory, it's not forced on anyone. It's chosen. It's embraced. It's entering into that process of healing and purification because you long for God. You long for perfect love.
And Mary's role in all of this, she's not a judge, is she? She's more like a guide, a compassionate mother welcoming her children home.
Exactly. She's the intercessor, the mother of mercy. And her appearance at the gate with Sarah's child, it's so powerful. It highlights her unique role in salvation history, as the mother of God and in a sense, the mother of all humanity. She's not just letting people into heaven, she's actively participating in that redemption.
And the connection to the mystical city of God, this concept that comes from the visions of Venerable Mary of Agreda, it adds this whole other layer to it, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It reinforces this idea of Mary as not just the gatekeeper, but as this radiant example of the purified soul. She embodies the church itself, welcoming us home.
Now, let's switch gears a little and talk about memory and family. These themes are so interwoven throughout the story, and they're so emotionally powerful. In the beginning, all four characters, T, Bridget, Box, and Sarah, they're all suffering from this partial amnesia. They can't fully remember their lives.
Right. And then forgetting, it's not presented as a punishment, is it? It's more like a grace.
It's like a spiritual anesthesia, right?
Right.
Like God is protecting them from the full weight of their past, the guilt, the pain, until they're strong enough to handle it.
Exactly. It speaks to God's mercy, his gentleness. It's like he's allowing them to heal a little bit before they have to confront the full reality of their lives.
And then as they start making choices, choosing love, choosing to resist despair, their memories slowly start coming back. It's like there's this connection between choosing love and reclaiming your true self.
Oh, for sure. You can't truly know yourself, the good and the bad, without love, without both God's love and human love. It's in that context that healing and forgiveness become possible.
It's so beautiful how you put that. And then there's that huge reveal, the twist that these four individuals who seem like strangers are actually a family. Ty is the father, Bridget the mother, Sarah their daughter, and Box is Sarah's lover. It just adds this whole other dimension to their journey.
It does. It suddenly becomes this story of family reconciliation, of healing these broken bonds, like the parable of the prodigal son, but even more complex.
It's amazing how you weave that biblical imagery into the story. So now that we've kind of laid the groundwork, let's really dig into the theological heart of the Grove Beyond the River from a specifically Catholic perspective. This idea of a sliver of time between death and judgment, this final moment of mercy, how does that fit in with what the Church teaches about the afterlife?
Well, as you know, the Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches that individual judgment happens right at the moment of death.
Right.
But I think your story can be seen as this poetic exploration of God's infinite mercy, his willingness to give us every possible opportunity to choose him. It echoes that passage in 2 Peter. God does not want anyone to perish, but all to come to repentance.
It's beautiful, really. And it reminds me of some of the writings of the mystics who talk about these extraordinary graces being offered at the very moment of death. It's like even at the very last second, God is still holding out his hand.
Exactly. And throughout the story, even in this unique in-between state, your characters still have free will. They're tempted, they struggle, but ultimately the choice is theirs.
And that's so important, right? The Church has always emphasized the dignity of human freedom. We're not puppets. We're made in God's image, and we have the capacity to choose, even in death.
Absolutely. And the story really highlights this dramatic choice we all face between truth and illusion, between choosing the hard path of purification and giving into the easy comfort of spiritual numbness. Like C.S. Lewis said, the gates of hell are locked from the inside. We choose our own fate.
And the city, that city beyond the hills, it's presented as this necessary step, this joyful but challenging purification process, which aligns perfectly with the Catholic understanding of purgatory.
Absolutely. Purgatory isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's that process of becoming pure, of becoming ready for the full glory of God's presence. And I love how Mary says in your story, you will be cleansed together. That is what purgatory truly is, love made perfect.
It's such a beautiful, concise definition, but the story also doesn't shy away from the danger of despair, does it? It's presented as the ultimate sin, the choice to stop loving, to reject God's mercy.
Right. Despair is the opposite of hope. It's turning away from God, refusing to believe in his love and forgiveness. And the mansion, with its promise of oblivion, is this chilling image of what that spiritual death looks like.
It's so subtle, so insidious, not fire and brimstone, but emptiness.
Exactly. And then there's this beautiful connection between memory and confession in the story. As the characters start remembering their pasts, they can finally acknowledge their guilt, see forgiveness, and begin to heal.
It's like a mirror image of the particular judgment where we stand before God and see our lives laid bare. And it also reflects the sacrament of reconciliation, where confession opens the door to God's mercy and healing.
Right. You can't move forward without first looking back, acknowledging what was, and asking for forgiveness.
And the acts of sacrificial love, they're so powerful, so moving. Like when Tia offers to take Sarah's punishment, it reminds me of the concept of redemptive suffering.
Absolutely. That willingness to suffer for another, it's the ultimate expression of love, of kenosis,
Mm.
self-emptying. And it's at the heart of our faith, right? Christ's sacrifice on the cross, that's the ultimate act of redemptive suffering.
It shows us that love, true love, is always willing to sacrifice. And then, of course, we have Mary's intercession, her appearance at the gate with Sarah's child. It's so full of grace, so full of hope.
It is. It's a perfect illustration of her role as the Mother of Mercy, as our intercessor. And it reminds us that even in those final moments, even when all hope seems lost, Mary is there, pleading for us, guiding us towards her Son.
And then the story ends with this beautiful image of restored communion, of this family, fractured and broken, walking together towards healing, towards the city of God. It speaks to this communal aspect of salvation, the idea that we're not saved alone, but together.
Yes, it's this beautiful image of the communion of saints, the idea that we're all connected, all part of the body of Christ, and that our salvation is bound up with each other's.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the grove beyond the river, what would you say is the core message of the story, especially when viewed through the lens of Catholic faith?
I think ultimately it's a story about the persistence of God's love, his willingness to reach out to us even beyond death. It reminds us that despair is never the final word, that truth has to be remembered and confessed, and that forgiveness is the bridge that leads us back to God.
And it so beautifully embodies so many core Catholic beliefs: grace, free will, the dangers of despair, the hope of purgatory, Mary's intercession, the power of love. It's all there.
It is. And for you, our listener, I think this story offers this incredibly profound meditation on God's mercy. It reminds you that even in your darkest moments, redemption is possible, and that you're not alone. You have the love of God, the intercession of Mary, and the support of the communion of saints. Never forget that.
It really makes you think about your own spiritual journey, doesn't it? The memories you carry, the forgiveness you need to give and receive, and the importance of choosing love, even when it's hard.
And what's so fascinating is how this story, this dream that you had, it's so deeply personal, but it resonates with these universal truths of our faith. It shows us that even on a subconscious level, these mysteries are working within us, seeking expression, seeking understanding.
Thank you so much for sharing such a meaningful and thought-provoking story with us. We truly hope this deep dive has given you some new insights and helped you to see the grove beyond the river in a new light.
Absolutely. And we encourage you to keep reflecting on it, to let its themes of memory, forgiveness, and love continue to resonate in your heart. And if you're interested in learning more about some of the theological concepts we've touched on today, like purgatory or Mary's role in salvation history, there are so many resources available.
Yes, definitely. And your story is such a great example of how, personal stories, creative expression, they can be such powerful tools for exploring our faith. It's not just about doctrine, it's about these personal journeys we each take on our way to God.
Exactly. So thank you again for sharing your journey with us. It's been a privilege to explore it together.
The Grove Beyond the River, Chapter 1, The Escapee. The sun had not yet cleared the horizon, but already the camp was stirring. The heavy scent of damp straw and boiled potatoes hung low in the air. Somewhere, a crow cawed once and fell silent. Beyond the fence, mist drifted along the trees like smoke from a forgotten fire. They all heard the gate creak open. Frenchie stood just inside, tall and trim in his threadbare officer's coat, silver buttons dulled with age. He said nothing. He never did, not in English. His arms were folded neatly behind his back, eyes narrowed against the rising light. He looked as if he were hosting a tea party, not receiving a prisoner. Leon and Marceau flanked the girl between them, one on each arm. She was dragging her feet, half-carried, red hair wild and tangled like brambles. Her face was smeared with dirt and fury. She struggled, then stumbled, then cursed in a sharp Irish accent that hadn't been heard here in weeks. The other prisoners gathered quietly, forming a loose semicircle in the dust. No one dared speak. A few recognized her, Bridget O'Connell, the Irish girl who'd climbed the fence 3 days ago, shouting that she'd make it to the sea if it killed her. It hadn't, yet her dress was torn at the hem. She was barefoot, the soles of her feet raw. And still her eyes blazed. Leon and Marceau brought her to Frenchie. He inclined his head slightly, as if greeting a guest. Bridget spat in his face. A low gasp rippled through the watchers. Marceau tensed. Leon simply smiled. Frenchy took a white handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the spittle from his cheek. Then he lifted Brigid's chin with 2 fingers and spoke softly, slowly in French. Allez-vous désespérer maintenant? Entrerez-vous dans la maison, comme les autres? Ou préférez-vous la boîte froide? Will you despair now? Will you enter the house, like the others? Or do you prefer the cooler? Brigid stared back, unflinching. You can rot, she muttered. Frenchy nodded once. 3 jours. They took her by the arms again and dragged her toward the glass-walled cell that stood at the far end of the yard, the cooler. The name was a joke. In the midday heat it became an oven. Everyone could see inside. Tiger, they'd called him once, watched with a heaviness in his gut. He had seen that look in her eyes before, long ago. On a London street, in neon lights and shadows. She looked younger now. Or maybe it was just that his memories were aging faster than she was. He remembered his own run. He had gone north, like they all did at first. North meant home, or the dream of it. London, the club, the debts unpaid, the people he'd hurt. And Frenchy had found him, not with dogs or guns, just waiting for him, sitting on a bench by the tracks like he'd been there all along. And then the cooler. "Ty," said a boy's voice behind him. Box, 15 maybe, too young for this place, whatever it was. But then weren't they all? What? T said. We should do something. T shook his head. There's nothing to do. Box's fists were clenched. His eyes were red. I know what it is, T snapped. They watched as Brigid was stripped to a smock and shoved into the cell. The door clicked shut. Her face was turned toward the crowd, lit in fractured glass. She didn't cry. Frenchy turned then, slowly, and looked straight at T. "Parlez Louis," he said in a voice that made the air colder. Tell her what it's like." T stepped forward. "I'm sorry," he whispered as he approached the cell. "I really am." Brigid's face didn't change. But he could feel the heat already rising through the glass. He turned and walked back. Frenchy had already vanished. That night, as the sun bled orange and red into the clouds, Ty and Box sat by the dry fire pit. "No one ever makes it, do they?" Box asked. "Not going north," T said. Box glanced at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying every fool who's tried to go back to England has ended up back here. Doesn't matter how far you get. Doesn't matter how fast. He finds you." "So what then?" Box said. "Give up." Ty stared at the horizon. "No, just don't go north. I'm going somewhere else." "I don't know. East, south. Away." Box paused. "I'm coming." T looked at him. The boy was scared. But something else was there, too. Hope. Maybe enough for both of them. "Then we leave at dawn," T said. And for the first time in what felt like years, but might have only been days, he allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't end up in the mansion. At least not yet. Chapter 2 boxcar. They moved before dawn, when the world still held its breath. The camp was quiet. Shadows stretched long and lean beneath the fences. Most of the others were still sleeping, or pretending to be. None dared speak. None asked where Ty and Box were going, though a few cast furtive glances from under threadbare blankets. They'd seen what happened to runners. No one wanted to witness it again. T led the way to the old shed behind the tool yard. The padlock was brittle with rust. One swing of the axe head split it like kindling. They took only what they could carry, a small axe, a coil of rope, a broken lantern, and a canvas satchel with a few strips of hard bread. "Is it enough?" Box whispered. "No," T said, "but we're not going back." They crossed the fence where the shadow of the trees fell thickest. T lifted a section of wire loose, already half unhooked. Someone before them had tried the same path. Beyond the fence, the land dipped into a frost-bitten hollow. Pine trees arched overhead like watchful sentries. The mist was thicker here, clinging to the ground like breath held too long. T expected resistance. A voice, a sound, Frenchy's tall silhouette in the distance. But nothing came. They kept moving. By mid-morning, they reached the tracks. The train was already there, an old, long freight line nestled on a sloping grade, engines silent, steam whispering faintly from its joints. The cattle cars were rusted. The boxcars locked. It looked abandoned, but alive. "It's waiting," Box said under his breath. "For what?" Box didn't answer. They walked the length of the train. One of the boxcars had a weakened latch. Ty pried it open with the axe. The door groaned and slid aside, revealing a hollow space inside, lined with hay and crates stacked haphazardly. They climbed in, pulled the door shut, and waited. The train groaned once, then lurched. It took them. Neither man spoke for a while. The rocking of the train lulled them into something like sleep, though both kept one eye open. Outside, glimpses of the countryside flashed between slats in the wood, pine forests, craggy hills, and once, what looked like a distant spire rising from a hazy valley. They passed through no towns, no stations, no crossings, only silence. They searched the crates. Most were nailed shut, but one had come loose. Inside, a bundle of coarse twine, an old wool scarf green with a small brass bell, and a half-used workbook with a child's name scribbled inside, Milo. The language was English, but unfamiliar somehow, like the words remembered from a dream. Box turned the pages. None of this makes sense. "It's not supposed to," T said. He fingered the scarf, then tucked it into his satchel without a word. They passed 2 days on the train. Or maybe more, time been inside the boxcar. Meals passed without hunger. Sleep came in strange fits. T dreamed of Bridget, not as she was in the camp, but in light, dressed in warmth and laughter. She was smiling, holding a small child whose face he couldn't see. He woke sweating. On the 3rd day, or perhaps the 2nd, the train began to slow. Outside, the trees had thickened into a dense forest, and just beyond them, a silver river gleamed like a mirror. The air had turned cool, damp with moss and leaf rot. Somewhere nearby, birds were singing, but not like any T had ever heard. Too clear, too harmonious, too perfect. Box peered out through a knothole. "We jump here." T didn't argue. They waited until the wheels slowed enough to make the leap. Ty went first, landing hard on the gravel beside the track. Box followed, slipping and rolling through a patch of moss. They lay there, breathing, hearts thudding. The train did not stop. It creaked away through the trees, vanishing into the mist like a dream dissolving. No tracks led behind them, only forward. They stood. Ahead, through a thicket of brush, the river curved gently. Just beyond it, nestled in a ring of ancient trees, a dark grove waited, quiet and cool. Ty looked at Box. "This is it," Box nodded. And together, they walked toward the place where even Frenchie might not follow. Chapter 3. The Grove. They crossed into the grove just before midday. It wasn't marked, and yet both Ty and Box felt it. The sudden hush, the change in light, the sense that they had stepped into a place not quite like the rest of the world. The canopy of trees overhead thickened, their trunks twisted like old bones wrapped in moss. But the air was cool and sweet. Sunlight still dappled through the leaves, dancing gently on the forest floor. Inside the grove, the underbrush thinned. It was as though something, or someone, had cleared it long ago. In the center of the clearing stood a small, weathered hut made of stone and dark timber, its roof thatched with pine boughs, a thin trail of smoke curling faintly from a crooked chimney. Someone had been here before. "This isn't just luck," Box murmured. "It feels like it's waiting." T didn't answer. He stepped forward, pushed open the warped wooden door, and ducked inside. The hut was modest, 2 narrow rooms with a fire pit between them, a rickety table, and a pair of bunks made from crates and straw. Dust hung in the air, but the space was dry and safe. T took the left room. Box claimed the right. For the first time in what felt like months, but may have been only days, they slept without fear. The days that followed were peaceful, uneasily so. They caught fish from the river using Box's makeshift net and the string from the train. They found a spring, cold and crystal clear, bubbling from a hollow beneath a crooked oak. The water tasted of minerals and something sweeter. Box swore it made his hands steadier, his thoughts clearer. They patched holes in the grove's perimeter, gaps in the thorn-thick border where something, perhaps animal, had once passed. They wove branches, dragged stones, sharpened spears. Still, T dreamed of Bridget. Sometimes she was standing in the campyard. Other times she was younger, barefoot on a London sidewalk, handing out flyers for Ty's club while pretending not to see him watching her. Once he dreamed she stood in a field of white flowers, face turned upward, whispering something he couldn't quite hear. He awoke with her name in his mouth. One evening, as they sat by the fire pit roasting a river trout, Box stared into the flames. "I keep thinking," he said, "about where we are. We don't know the country. The language, sure, but there's no towns, no people, just this." "It's not England," T muttered. That much is clear. And the train who laid those tracks? Why did it stop here? T didn't answer. He was watching the trees. The next morning Bach spotted it. A bear, massive and slow-moving, padding along the grove's edge. It paused at the thorns, sniffed the air, and then stared. Its eyes were wrong, not just animal wrong, human wrong, or worse. They glinted with something knowing, something expectant. The bear didn't charge. It simply turned and disappeared into the woods, leaving behind a silence so thick it rang in their ears. I thought bears were extinct in these parts, Bach whispered. They are, T said. Neither of them said what they were thinking. The bear hadn't tried to break in. It didn't need to. That night, T stood at the edge of the grove, staring into the darkness. The firelight didn't reach this far. The trees shifted in the wind, and beyond them, the world felt thinner somehow. He knelt and touched the cool earth. We're not alone out here, he said. Behind him, Bach stirred in the hut. And just beyond the trees, something unseen watched and waited. Chapter 4, The Barge. The river had been still for days, a long mirror winding through the trees, interrupted only by birds and the splash of feeding fish. It had become part of the background hum of the grove, reliable, untouched, safe, until the morning Bach saw the barge. He was down by the spring, rinsing out a strip of cloth, when something caught his eye, a glint of movement on the water, slow and purposeful. He froze. The barge moved like a shadow on the surface, large and low, its hull dark as charred wood. Bach dropped the cloth and ran. Ty stepped out of the hut with his axe already in hand. The two men climbed to the ridge overlooking the river and lay flat in the brush. From there they saw it clearly. The barge was maybe 20 feet long, with a small enclosed cabin at the back and a mast with no sail. It moved as though powered by thought alone. And standing at the bow, one foot resting on a coiled rope, was Frenchie. His coat looked the same. Blue wool, perfectly tailored, though the buttons seemed shinier now, newer. He held a long spyglass to one eye, sweeping the banks with slow, deliberate motion. At his feet lay two figures, Bridget, and beside her, a girl with short, ashed hair and sunken cheeks, Sarah, one of the younger girls from the camp. She had once spoken about surrendering to the mansion, to the easy life behind its heavy doors. They weren't bound, but neither were they resisting. They lay like old coats, limp and lifeless, eyes vacant. Frenchie rested his polished boots on them like footstools. Bach growled under his breath. How did he find us? T didn't answer. He was watching Frenchie's gaze, slowly sweeping left, then right, scanning each grove, each tree, like a hawk-seeking movement. But he didn't see them. Not yet. The barge reached a bend and slowed. Frenchie sat, removed a cigar from a tin, and lit it with a match that flared bright in the dusk. Smoke curled upward like a dark ribbon. He watched it drift, his face impassive. Then with one quick kick, he shoved both girls aside like furniture, rose to his feet, and dropped anchor. The chain hissed into the river with a metallic sigh. Frenchie disappeared into the small rear cabin and closed the door behind him. The smoke lingered on the deck like a warning. Night fell. They waited until moonrise. Creeping down through the trees, Ty and Bach waded into the water without a word, letting the current push against their legs. It was cold and thick with silt. The barge rocked gently. They approached from the far side, rising slowly beside the hull. T reached first, gripping the railing, then pulled himself aboard with a silent grunt. Bach followed, landing light on his feet. Bridget stirred. Her eyes opened. She almost screamed, but Ty pressed a finger to her lips. Her eyes widened in recognition. Her lip quivered, but she didn't cry out. Sarah blinked awake next. Her face was empty, then flooded with confusion, then fear. "We're getting you out," Bach whispered. He took Sarah's hand. T lifted Bridget. They moved quietly toward the edge of the barge. A lantern flickered within the cabin, but no movement. Frenchie was sleeping, or pretending to. Ty cut the anchor rope with one clean swipe. It sank into the river with a hiss. They slipped over the edge into the water, the girls gasping at the cold. Bach held Sarah close. T cradled Bridget, and they let the current carry them back to shore. Behind them, the barge drifted slowly downstream, untethered, unguarded, and silent. They reached the bank gasping, trembling. No one spoke for a while. Bridget buried her face in Ty's shoulder. Sarah clung to Bach like a child. When they reached the grove's edge, The cool, familiar air wrapped around them like a veil. Safe, for now, but Ty knew what this meant. Frenchie had found them, and next time he might not sleep. Chapter 5, Bridget and Sarah. They collapsed at the grove's edge, cold and soaked through, lungs aching from the river's grip. The girls clung to the men like leaves in a storm. No one spoke for a long time. The fire T had left burning in the hut was still flickering. He added fresh branches with trembling hands, then stripped off his coat and wrapped it around Bridget. Box did the same for Sarah. The girls were shivering, pale as milk. "Inside," T said gently. They helped the girls into the hut. Bridget sank onto one of the bunks and buried her face in her hands. Sarah sat beside her, eyes wide and vacant. The men stood in the doorway, dripping water onto the floor. Box spoke first. "We need dry clothes." "Food. Blankets." Ty nodded. "I'll start a stew." They worked in silence. Box gathered firewood while T skinned and cleaned one of the river fish they'd caught earlier. The girls didn't ask questions. They barely spoke. But slowly, very slowly, the color began to return to their cheeks. It wasn't until nightfall that the bear came back. It didn't roar or charge. It simply appeared, huge and silent, at the far edge of the grove, watching with its two human eyes. Its breath fogged in the cold air. Box stepped between the bear and the hut, spear in hand. T came to stand beside him. "If it comes in, we fight." The bear advanced. It didn't move like an animal. Its steps were deliberate, calculating, as if testing them. When it reached the first line of thorns, Box let out a shout and charged. The bear roared finally and met them head-on. It was chaos, teeth, claws, snarls, splinters of wood, and sprays of blood. The grove seemed to hold its breath as T buried the axe in the bear's neck and Box drove the spear into its side. It thrashed once, twice, and then fell still. Silence. The fire crackled behind them. The bear was dead. They dragged the carcass near the fire pit, blood trailing behind them. Bridget stepped out of the hut, Sarah just behind her. "You killed it," Bridget said softly. "We had to," Ty muttered, wiping blood from his brow. "It wouldn't have stopped." Sarah knelt beside the beast. "It wasn't just a bear." "No," Box said, "it wasn't, but it was meat." And fur and warmth. They began to clean it. Later that night, the four sat around the fire. A great pot of stew bubbled nearby. The pelt hung drying between two branches. Bridget looked at T across the flames. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I remember now, the cooler, the heat. I nearly died in there." "I know," T said. "It wasn't the first time. Frenchie took me once before, told me I was strong, that I'd be better off giving up." Box turned to Sarah. "You too?" Sarah nodded. "I thought I couldn't go on. The mansion, it looked like peace." "But it wasn't," Bridget whispered. It was just silence, the bad kind. A pause. Then T spoke. "Why do you think he brought you on the barge?" Bridget met his eyes. "To lure you. You and Box. He knew you'd come." "Then he miscalculated," Box said, tossing a stick into the flames. "Because now we're not just surviving. We're fighting." Bridget smiled faintly. "And for the first time in a long time, I don't feel afraid." That night, Ty and Box offered the bunks to the girls without a word. They didn't argue. Ty laid a blanket down outside, just within the grove's circle. Box lay beside him, both men wrapped in their coats, staring at the canopy of stars above. "I think we changed something," Box said. T didn't answer, but he agreed. Somewhere in the cold distance of the woods, something was watching, but within the grove the fire burned warm. And for now, at least, they were safe. Chapter 6, Summer to Winter. It happened overnight. They went to sleep beneath the green canopy of late summer, warm wind in the branches, cicadas humming lazily through the evening, the scent of pine thick in the air, and woke to silence. T stirred first. He blinked and sat up, expecting sunlight, but the world had turned white. Snow blanketed the clearing in a perfect hush, inches deep, untouched, but for their footprints near the fire pit. Frost laced the edges of the hut, the branches, even the walls of the grove itself. Box stumbled out of the hut barefoot, gasping. "Winter," T said simply. "But last night it was warm. I was sweating." Sarah and Bridget emerged behind them, both wrapped in blankets. Their breath hung visibly in the air. "It's freezing," Bridget murmured. Sarah stepped forward, puzzled. "The snow stops there." They all turned. The grove's edge, where the trees thickened and the thorn wall wound like a protective fence, was untouched. No snow beyond, just green sunlit forest. But within the circle of the grove, snow had fallen. A winter of its own. Time's broken, Box muttered. T nodded grimly. Or something's changing. They moved quickly to adapt. The bear's carcass, already partially cleaned, had not yet spoiled, but the cold would preserve it now. Ty and Box set to work at once, dragging the hide to a makeshift rack outside the hut. They salted the meat and laid it on stones, where the frost set in like a second skin. Brigid tended the fire while Sarah returned to the spring. "It's still flowing," she called to them. Box followed her. The spring, fed from a source they couldn't see, poured crystal clear into a shallow stone basin, unfrozen despite the frost around it. Steam rose gently from its surface. Sarah knelt and cupped the water in her hands. She drank. "It tastes like light," she said. "Like courage." Box knelt beside her. "You really think it's doing something?" "I think it already has." She turned and looked at him, her eyes soft and steady. "You brought me back." "No," he said quietly. "I followed you here." By evening, the hut was warm with fire and laughter. Brigid and T worked side by side over the stew pot, cutting meat and dried herbs. Brigid smiled more now, though her smile was worn like an old coat, still fitting, but not yet natural. "You're better," T said gently. "I'm healing," she replied, stronger than before. Brigid turned, met his eyes. "Because of you." He looked away. "Because of this place." "No," she said, placing a hand on his. "Because you chose love." Later, as the stars emerged and the fire flickered low, Box walked the edge of the grove. That's when he saw them, eyes, dozens of them. Reflections in the trees just beyond the snow line, some low to the ground, others higher. Shapes moved between trunks, a wolf, a boar, a great horned owl with golden eyes, the bear or its shadow lingering at the edge. They did not cross into the grove. They only watched. Box backed away slowly, then turned and walked back to the fire. "They're out there," he told the others. "Waiting." T stirred the fire. "Let them wait." Sarah drew closer to Box, wrapping a blanket around both of them. Brigid stood beside T. "This place, it's more than a hiding spot, isn't it?" Didn't answer. But in his heart something stirred. The snow might have come early. The time might be broken, but something was moving beneath it all. Not fear, something deeper, something divine. Chapter 7, The Circle Tightens. By the second day, the snow had melted. It didn't fade gradually. It vanished. One moment, it lay in soft drifts around the hut and fire pit, and the next, the ground was dry and cool as if winter had never touched it. Even the bare hide, half cured, was suddenly pliant and supple, as though time had jumped forward again. No one said it aloud, but they all felt it. Something was watching. That morning, Box found tracks near the grove's edge, deep impressions in the earth, too large to be human, but not entirely animal. He followed them a short way, crouching near where they circled and doubled back, never quite breaching the barrier of the grove. Then he found the charm. A small effigy made from twine and carved wood, faceless, strung from a tree branch with black thread. He showed it to T. "Don't burn it," Sarah warned. "It might be a warning." "It already is," T said, and tossed it into the fire. It burned with the smell of charred hair. That night, the visitor came. He stepped from the trees without sound, dressed in a traveler's cloak and walking stick, eyes the color of storm clouds. He was old, but not weak. His presence carried weight, like someone used to command but gentle in its use. He entered the grove like he belonged there. The four stood around the fire, weapons forgotten. The air was still reverent. "You have come far," the man said softly, "and now you must choose." They said nothing. He continued, "There is a city beyond the hills. You have felt it, glimpsed it perhaps in dreams. It is real, and the path is open to you now." Box swallowed. But, the man said, "the journey is not easy. You must leave behind everything. All possessions, all pride, all fear. You may carry only love." T's jaw tightened. "And if we choose not to go," the man gestured toward the river. Two figures waited at the grove's edge. Léon and Marceau, their faces were calm, their clothes immaculate. Behind them sat a new barge, polished and ready. "There will be no punishment," Léon called with a heavy French accent. "The master welcomes you back to the mansion. No more tests, no more pain," Marceau smiled. "You've proven yourselves. You may rest." The temptation hung heavy in the air. The girls exchanged glances. T felt his heart tremble. Then Sarah stepped forward. "I don't care what I have to leave," she said. "I'm not afraid. I'll go to the city." The old man nodded, but T grabbed her arm. "No, let me go in your place. I've done wicked things. I'll take your punishment." Sarah touched his face gently. "No, T, I forgive you, and our baby is waiting. I feel it." Ty's eyes widened. Bridget stepped forward too. "I'll go," she said. "If love is at the end of the road, I'll bear anything to reach it." T turned to her. "Then let me carry your burden. You suffered because of me." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "Then come with me. Not as debt, but as love." He took her hand. Box turned to Sarah, and the two stepped together to the old man. Then, as one, the four took the first step down the path. The grove shimmered behind them, the light shifting as if the world had exhaled. And the path ahead unfolded like a ribbon of light. Chapter 8, Memories. They walked in silence. The trees thinned as they ascended, the ground rising in gentle curves toward the distant hills. The air grew warmer, lighter, like something had lifted from their chests. Time no longer pressed down on them. Instead, it seemed to breathe with them. Then the memories returned, not as dreams or hints, but as a flood. Bridget was the first to speak. "I was born in 1990, she said softly. "My mum was Irish. My da was from Liverpool. I used to sleep by the docks and listen to the ships." T turned to her, something stirring in his eyes. "I ran away to London when I was 15, she continued. "I was just trying to escape a home that didn't feel like one. That's where I met you." T stopped walking. The wind picked up. "You ran a club," Bridget said. "A dark place, music lights, too much of everything." Ty nodded slowly, his face drawn. "I remember now. You danced under the name Cherry. I called you that. I thought it gave you power." Bridget smiled, bitter and soft. "I hated it, but I liked you. Not the job, you." T looked away. "And I liked you too. But I used you. I profited from your pain. I thought if I kept you close, I was protecting you. I wasn't." Bridget stepped toward him. "I forgave you a long time ago. I just never had the courage to say it." He met her eyes, and in them he saw no accusation. Only mercy. He reached out, took her hand. There was nothing between them now but love. Box walked beside Sarah, quiet until her hand brushed his. "I remember you," he said. "We were kids." "Derby." Sarah nodded. "You kissed me by the bridge. I told you I loved you, but I was scared. Scared you'd leave me, scared I'd lose you. I didn't leave." Box's voice cracked. "I pressured you. You said you weren't ready. I pushed anyway. You got pregnant." Sarah looked at the sky, then back at him. "It wasn't your fault. I killed you," Box said. "You had an ectopic pregnancy. You died, and your father, he found me in the alley. He was drunk. I think I deserved it." Sarah's eyes welled. "You didn't kill me. And I still loved you," he broke. Sarah pulled him close, wrapping her arms around him. "I forgive you. Let it go. We're not those people anymore." And in that embrace, something ancient and heavy shattered. They climbed higher. The trees fell away. The sky opened, and for a moment everything was still. Then, on the wind, they heard it. French, spoken softly, carried across the frozen river that wound far below them like a silver snake. They turned. Far behind, down in the distance, the woods swirled with fog, and from within that fog came words. "Ils se souviennent. Ils sont dangereux maintenant." They remember. They are dangerous now. Bridget stepped closer to T. Sarah took Box's hand. And with no fear, the four turned away from the voice and kept walking toward the light breaking over the hills. Chapter 9, A Decision. The sky brightened as they reached the ridgeline. Below them lay a valley bathed in gold. Beyond it, rising like a dream in stone and light, was a city unlike any they had ever seen. Its spires caught the sun like polished mirrors. Its gates shone like pearl. And above it, a single bell rang out, not in warning, but in welcome. They all stopped. "This is it," Bridget whispered. But before they could take another step, a figure appeared on the path. An old man, tall, robed in dusty white, a staff in his hand, and eyes that seemed to hold the sadness and strength of ages. He smiled, but not with triumph, with tenderness. "You have come far," he said. They nodded. "You stand at the crossroads now," the old man continued. "One path leads to the city beyond the hills, where love is made perfect. But to reach it, you must let go of all things. Your guilt, your identity, even your memories if they are not love." "And the other path?" Box asked, though he already knew. The old man turned slightly. Behind them, on the lower slope, Léon and Marceau stood waiting beside a new barge. Their uniforms were crisp, their smiles false. "No more trials," Léon called, "no punishments. You've proven yourselves." "The master has opened the doors," Marceau said. "Just come, rest, you'll feel no more pain." Their voices were gentle, tempting. The wind carried their words like honey. The old man spoke again softly. "You may go to the mansion. There, you will never suffer again. But you will never love again either." A long silence. Then Sarah stepped forward. "I don't care what I have to give up," she said. "I'm not afraid. If love is there, then that's where I'm going." The old man inclined his head, but T reached for her hand. "Let me go in your place. I've done too much. I should carry your weight." Sarah looked at him, her eyes wet with both grief and joy. "No," she said, "you already have. I forgive you. We'll go together." Then Brigid stepped forward. "I'll go too. If this is where we find love, real love, then nothing else matters." T turned to her. "Then let me carry your burden." Brigid touched his chest. "You don't have to. I already laid it down. Come with me." The old man opened his arms. They stepped forward together, all four hand in hand. The wind lifted. The world turned to light. And suddenly they were no longer on the mountain, but on a white road leading straight into the city. The gates had opened. Chapter 10, The Unveiling. They walked the white road as dawn broke fully over the city. The light here did not burn. It embraced. The air shimmered with something not quite seen grace, they felt, more than anything else. And then they remembered everything. The world they came from, the lives they had lived. And the moment each of them had died, Ty with the rope still around his neck, Brigid alone in her apartment with pills, Sarah bleeding out in a hospital bed, and Box in the alley, surrounded by fists and grief. But even death had not been the end. 2 minutes, that's what had been given, a final gift. In those minutes, a realm had opened, a place suspended between judgment and mercy, where demons were permitted to tempt and deceive, and souls were offered one last, hidden choice, to despair or to love. Many had chosen the mansion, the ease of numbness. But these four had not. They had chosen the road. They had chosen each other, and now they saw the final truth. Brigid had been only 15 when she'd given birth to Sarah, and T was the father. In his guilt, he had rejected them both. Brigid had never told him the truth. Sarah had grown up wondering who she was, why she felt unloved. Box had been her only real connection, and in trying to hold on to her, he had helped destroy them both. Now, under the cleansing light, none of that mattered. Not as accusation, only as story. A family torn apart in life, reunited by grace. Ahead, the gates opened wider, and there stood a woman robed in stars, a crown upon her brow, holding a child in her arms. "Mary," she smiled. "You were baptized into my son," she said, "and I was made your mother at the cross. I asked him to grant you this final chance. You chose love, and now by grace you may enter." She lowered her eyes to the child she held. "Sarah," she said gently, "this is your son. He has waited with me." Tears fell, but they did not sting. Only healed. Mary opened her arms. "You must pass through the city," she said. "You will be cleansed together. That is what purgatory truly is. Love made perfect. And on the other side..." She looked toward the rising light beyond the gates. Only joy remains. The four embraced. T, Brigid, Box, and Sarah. Then they walked forward hand in hand. Mary turned, cradling the child, and led them into the mystical city of God. And behind them the doors closed softly. But ahead, only love remained.